Hypixel Skyblock is a very complicated and time-consuming game mode, and it can often get very boring. To try to work around this, people started developing mods to improve the experience. There are many different types of Skyblock mods that have been developed, ranging anywhere from quality of life mods to mods that are just straight up hacked clients. But today, we're going to be taking a look at the history of these mods and where it all started. So let's take a look at the first popularized mod on Skyblock, which many of you may be familiar with. And that is, of course, Skyblock Addons, or SBA. The first edition of SBA was released on June 22nd, 2019, and at that time it only had 3 features. Those 3 features were very useful. Remember the magma boss? Yeah, the thing you would sit and wait for 2 hours and not even get a single hit on it? Well, SBA helped a lot with that. The 3 features were the magma boss timer, which pretty much everyone used, the option to disable the ember rod on private islands to avoid blowing up your chests, and the final feature was an option to enable drop confirmation, which would later be added as a feature in the game itself. And those were the humble beginnings of the biggest mod on Skyblock. And only about a month later, the developer Biscuit would update the mod for the first time. This update added tons of quality of life updates like the health and mana bar, and other features like full inventory warnings, and also the best feature, backpack previews. Many more updates would come later on, like summoning eye warnings and other useful GUI additions, but that's all I'll be covering about SBA. Because SBA was so popularized, other experienced coders wanted to make mods for things which they thought would be useful. This led people like Complex Origin and Alpha Elite to develop Skyblock Extras. This was the first and only mod on Skyblock, I'm pretty sure, which you had to pay for. It originally cost 5 mil Skyblock coins, but admins or mods warned them to make it IRL money when they started enforcing IRL trading rules. However, it is definitely worth the price because it has tons of useful features like loot counters, pet XP, better enchanting, and much more. As you can tell, there are tons of useful mods on Skyblock that have been developed, but this brings up a new problem. But before I get into that, I'd like to mention that the goal for this channel is a G Fuel partnership, so any sub helps. Anyways, back to the video. So the problem is that some mods are, well, a bit too useful. Some developers get a little bit carried away when making these mods, and that was the case with a player known as Hael9 and Portal 3. I'm sure you've all seen I Go By Lots of Names video on Portal 3's mod, Just Enough Dungeons, so I won't be covering that, but we will be talking about Hael9. Hael9 was a top dungeons player for a very long time. He grinded dungeons for weeks on end. But with top players comes grinding, and with grinding comes boredom, and that was the case with Hael9. I'm assuming he just got bored of running dungeons over and over again, so he made a new mod which would be referred to as Hael Client by a lot of players. Hael9's mod was used for, of course, dungeons. The problem was that his mod was more of a hacked client than an actual mod. The main features being that it would automatically solve terminals, it would create ghost blocks for getting secrets faster and running through walls. It had an integrated macro for bone meringues, and also had an auto clicker for killing Necron with a Hyperion. So obviously, this was a little bit more than a quality of life thing. This was an all-out hacked client, and for reasons unknown to me, I guess a lot of top players wanted to use this. Although it was extremely obvious that using this mod was bannable and could get these players wiped, the game has gotten very stale recently, and some players saw this as the perfect opportunity to spice things up and have a little fun for the first time in months. Although a lot of these players have been wiped or banned, at least they have been freed from this game. And now that we've talked about the main Skyblock mods, I want to talk about why this is all relevant. Yesterday, Frozen, a Hypixel Skyblock admin, made a very, people didn't like what he had decided to do, to say the least. So very quickly, I'm going to break down everything he said and what it really means. The post in summary said that some mods were proving to be an issue with packet manipulation and were hurting the server. Packet manipulation are things like Hyperion auto-clicking and blocking clicks in GUIs, by the way. He said that these modifications would be disallowed, so the initial response to this was that Skyblock was dead and no one will play the game without mods. However, I'm very happy to tell those of you who didn't know yet, only some mods are disallowed, and some developers were just required to remove some features that the admins weren't pleased with. So things like locked slots and additions to GUIs are allowed, as well as highlighted items and better enchanting as far as I'm aware. I'll link the forums post in the description if you want to see more about it. In my opinion, the admins are doing a pretty good job with handling this. I'm looking forward to see what direction they'll be taking the game in the near future. But anyways, that was the complete history of the most well-known Skyblock mods.